Hello,
Cool.
hello.
Hey. This is awesome. Big week.
Huge week. Well, I want to see if we're coming through on YouTube. Um, yes, we are. We are. So exciting. One person's watching. That might be me.
Maybe. That'd be great, you know? Maybe it should be two, I mean, me and you. But
Yeah. Okay, I think we're also live on Instagram. Sweet.
perfect.
Okay. And then what happens if we go portrait? Okay, go now that we're live. Okay, awesome.
Cool. Well, I mean, what a fun week. Months of work all kind of accumulated into the launch on Tuesday. So I mean, that was sweet.
That was awesome. Yeah, I feel like it's so nerve wracking. Like the closer and closer you get, you're excited, but you're anxious for what's going to happen. Is it going to go over well? Is it going to go over poorly? What's going to happen? And then when afterwards, it's just such a relief.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I was definitely nervous from a technical side. You see a lot of times where, you launch and something happens and you get a lot of people all blasting the servers at once. And that was something that I was most nervous about. But it seems like everything for the most part was pretty solid. We got a lot of awesome feedback on Tuesday and the past few days and taking this into like improving that service. But I think it would be pretty cool to share with everybody like a little bit about Jellypod and you know what Jellypod is, who we are, what why we created this AI podcast studio in the first place. So I don't know if you wanted to kick us off.
Yeah, most definitely. I'll start with an intro about myself. My name's Jason Alafghani. I'm yeah, a lot of you have probably seen me on the how-tos, the tutorials. Um, I hope you all like those. And if you have any feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out. All I'm trying to do is make great content for all of you. But okay, to go back to the intro. So my name is Jason Alafghani. I've been working in tech, specifically on growth and marketing, for over a decade now, specifically in the SF Bay Area. And now I'm up in Seattle. I've got a family. I've got a 1-year-old kid. And yeah, that's about a bit about me at a high level.
Great. Yeah. And I guess a little bit about me. So yeah, obviously Jason and I co-founded Jellypod together. I'm down in LA right now, where I'm a SoCal native. Jason and I met in Seattle together. Back when I was living there, I previously worked at Amazon on the Alexa team prior to Jellypod. I've always been really passionate about natural computer interfaces. I always thought Alexa, Siri, and the promises of all those AI assistants was awesome back then. And today, kind of after that ChatGPT moment, that I think a lot of people felt that we're actually entering an era where you can really naturally communicate with computers, and it's pretty exciting. So, um, I studied computer science at UCLA. Jason and I both went to UCLA, both Bruins, and I think the reason why we started Jellypod and in what we're doing is really giving more people a voice. So, um, oh, cool. We have someone from Berlin entering the chat. But yeah, so just to finish up here on our intros, but yeah, we just wanted to create a platform that allowed people to more easily share stories with the world. Um, Imagine like you had a team of highly intelligent creative assistants at your fingertips where they're able to execute on your high level vision without the expensive equipment and time required to really create a high quality podcast. So when you come to Jellypod, pretty much in under a few minutes, you're able to upload information, these what we call sources, whether that's a PDF, spreadsheets, YouTube videos, websites, pretty much almost anything you can think of, and then you're given the option to guide how the AI is able to understand those documents and how it converts that into a podcast. And this all happens under the umbrella of hosts that you design. You design their backstories, you choose their voices, and at the end of it all, you have an audio that we host for you and help distribute this to platforms like Spotify and YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms down the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the great like in-depth answer. At the highest level, what I've been thinking about a lot lately, a big passion of mine, I love audiobooks. And I think audiobooks are just an awesome way to consume, long, novels, etc. But there's so much other content, all the stuff that Pearson just mentioned, PowerPoints, blogs, spreadsheets, you name it. There's so much content that's sort of trapped in this format that isn't always the most pleasant to consume. So Jellypod is all about taking that, and it's not just about, there's lots of companies that are just, taking text and putting it into audio. And that really isn't us. It's not just about reading audio aloud. It's about converting information, converting a story into something that people actually want to listen to into the best way that that person wants to share it.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. So we have this first comment here, I think makes sense to address it. Hey, over there in Berlin, thanks for hopping on. But so just to reiterate what the question was, it says, podcasts like this are interesting for me and my website, and is Jellypod better than NotebookLM? And what about the usage rights? Yeah, so great question. NotebookLM, for anyone that's not aware, is a platform that Google created, released a few months ago, that allows you to upload sources and chat with those sources. You can upload, I think, 50 or so sources, and you can really have a chat interface grounded in the information that you upload, whether that's websites or URLs. They recently added a feature called audio overviews, or their deep dives. And this is pretty much just, it's a feature that creates about 7 to 10 minute podcast on all that source material between two hosts. It's a male and a female voice. They're the same host for everybody. And it was pretty cool because I think that was a moment where a lot of people around the world recognized that actually AI can make interesting content that people like to listen to, that sounds realistic and natural. And so it was like that moment where maybe like ChatGPT for a lot of people, that people actually started to believe that AI can be creative and can be interesting to listen to. So NotebookLM does that, and that's really for personal use. So the thing about NotebookLM is like, hey, you have a bunch of information, whether that's academic papers, reports, websites, anything, and you can create something for yourself. And that's kind of in the similar vein of AI-assisted creation, but where Jellypod really stands out and where we're focusing is not in this personal use, but really providing a platform for anybody who wants to tell a story to upload information and really guide the output so that this final podcast episode that you create isn't something that's just this black box. You give it stuff and you get audio out. It's really just an assisted workflow where you're able to guide the narrative, choose the host, choose their backstories, and really have that fine-grained control over that output, including transcript editing at the end. So if there was something that the AI said and you don't like how it said that, or maybe it made a mistake like AI can do, you have the ability to actually go in and comb through everything that it's about to say and talk about, and make sure it really adheres to your brand guidelines, or it just says the things that you want it to say, unlike NotebookLM. And so after that process, you generate audio, and you can have that podcast available on any podcast platform like Spotify. So hopefully that gave a little bit of background into the difference between NotebookLM and Jellypod. Pretty two different products. Both have the ability to create audio podcast type content. That's all we do. That's what we focus on. well, NotebookLM, that's a side feature that's been pretty cool, but really for personal use. And I don't know if Jason,
Yeah.
if you wanted to expand on that a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah, totally. I think to me, the simplest way to break it down is it's about telling your story versus telling the AI story. So Notebook LM is great at, you don't know what, here's 50 sources. I haven't read them. I know nothing about them. Tell me what's underneath it. Pull out whatever you want. Tell it to me. And the AI tells you a great story. It's awesome for that use case. But when you have a story you want to tell, right? You just don't have the time. You are working you're working in a full-time job in whatever industry you're doing. You have a life, but you have a story to tell. And you've been trying to tell the story for years. You've talked about a podcast with a friend, or you thought about starting a YouTube channel. You just need to tell the story. We're here to help you do that, and that's what our AI is all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know to answer that second part of that question there about usage rights. Yeah, for any people on our paid plans, you're able to use this commercially uh, for your business, to make a YouTube channel, a monetized YouTube channel. So yeah, you have full usage rights. You own those inputs and those outputs there. Um, and I see this new comment come through, but yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. As a creator, you want to have that control. So it shouldn't be randomness, right? You're right.
And it's not just, I think Pearson hit on this, but just to reiterate one more time in terms of, so the question came in about it shouldn't be total randomness, right? You should be able to talk about things thematically the way you want to. And the way we think about that is in distinct chunks. We believe that there's a style to the way that the who behind a story. So that's why we believe in host customization. Then there's this thematic customization, which we believe is all about the outline. So you can structure the narrative, right? You guide the narrative. How do you want it to progress over time? And then there's that final step of the narrow customization down to the character, down to the word, which makes it so that you can be very accurate, right? It doesn't matter what you're talking about. There's not going to be a hallucination or any error that you don't allow it to do.
Totally. I think that's like a great segue into sharing some examples of, I think, podcasts people are creating today. Like, I know one of my favorite ones that I saw was somebody just wanted to talk about pineapple on pizza. So just for context, like my dad's from New York. I grew up in Southern California. I loved Hawaiian style pizza. He hated it. And there was somebody that made a podcast just bashing on pineapple on pizza. And it was actually funny. Like I was blown away. I listened to this thing and I laughed. There was a line in there that said, pizza doesn't need a tropical vacation and a midlife crisis to be good. And it was actually funny. And that was the first time for me where I actually saw something or listened to something that was created by AI that made me laugh. And that was wild. So I don't know, that was one example that kind of blew me away. I shared it with all my friends and family. So
Yeah, I remember that one. That one was making a little bit of a round on LinkedIn. I mean, to me, it's hard to pick any one. What I'm always surprised by is the diversity in the concepts. Just when we think, okay, it's going to be, we started off, okay, it makes sense for it to help companies with their marketing plans, but then it just took into so many different turns, right? Somebody makes a podcast about the EPL, the English Premier League, and a fantasy preview every week with their own personal take about which players are going to do what. There's a long list of things, cybersecurity, AI awareness. But as a parent, one of the ones that I really think is cool is somebody's doing a kids STEM podcast. So there's always these cool new technology innovations, science innovations, but often this information is not very digestible to kids, nor is it really that fun, for a kid to hear about a neural network breakthrough. But to be able to take that and digest it in a host that is relatable and fun to listen to is now making that, that kind of content possible. But the list goes on. I mean, uh, health, wellness, philosophy, logic, cult movie reviews, just a few that I pulled out most recently. But all in all, the key is there's no niche too small, is what we're realizing. That there is always a new niche. There's always someone with this really cool insight or POV on some awesome little slice of the world, and hearing those stories is incredible.
Totally. Yeah, it's I think that's wild. I think that was one of the realizations that I had about media. Like back when we were starting Jellypod, it was like, yeah, people can start a podcast. Like anybody, they buy a mic, they can start, right? And oftentimes, even that, just you buy a mic, you sit down, you think about what you want to talk about. Maybe you get a few hundred subscribers or whatever. You have maybe 10, 20 episodes, which by the way, if you get to 20 episodes, you're in the top 99% of podcasters globally. So only 1% of podcasters ever get past that 20 episode mark. So if you do that, you're already like on a road to success. And so many people stop before that. But to dedicate that time into like a niche podcast where maybe only you're interested in, but like the reality is that there are so many people with interests in these niches that maybe don't know who they are, but people care about the same things, even if they're not in your relative circle. And so if we can help you make it so that it's not this extremely tough upfront investment to share what you want to talk about with your peers, that's kind of where I thought Jellypod was really helping a lot of people to share those stories. Because, like, for example, this English Premier League podcast that Jason just mentioned, there was people that were wanting to create podcasts on League Two soccer, which, if you know about the Premier League, there's the Premier League, Champions League, and it goes all the way down to like League Two, and those teams don't have many fans. They're small, and if you like that team, there's probably not a lot of content on your team, like giving a recap of the games. And for you to want to start a podcast where the potential audience is pretty small, it's going to be probably pretty hard to ever make that investment pay off if you're thinking about it in that way. If you have to actually want to go and buy a mic, go to a recording studio, spend the time editing and clipping out everything, it's kind of tough, So now you can do it just by sitting at your desk and maybe either for free or for a few bucks a month, So that was pretty cool, I thought.
Definitely. Definitely. I lost my train of thought.
Oh, no, we're good. Yeah, I mean, I think it would be cool to share a little bit behind the scenes about the launch and what went well, maybe what didn't go as well, what we did leading up to kind of make people excited about Jellypod, and maybe a little bit about the beta period and what we learned. I don't know if there was anything you wanted to share.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, I mean, the beta period was awesome. I feel like it wasn't just the two of us building. I feel like we were, building it with thousands of other people. So to give people, context, I think we put up a wait list maybe 2 to 3 months ago, and then started to let people in off the wait list, I think 2 months ago, and did it in batches. So there were various rules or distinctions that we had for who would come off. Really, we were hyper focused on making sure that every person that we brought on was going to find usefulness, was going to find use out of the platform immediately. We didn't want someone to come on and just not get it and then have a bad experience. So we were really methodical about that. So I mean, that's the wait list and the method behind it, I thought was went really well.
And I mean, at the very beginning, we kind of made everybody that wanted to join hop on a call with us. So we asked them some questions hey, how'd you find Jellypod? What are you going to use it for? Kind of little vetting process. I don't know. It was cool. We got to put a face to a lot of our first users.
Oh, I love those. I love those calls. They definitely now people are just jumping in and and they're flying and they're using the product, so they have less desire to talk to me, but just anybody listening, to the people listening right now, the handful of you, If you want to hop on a call, we're always available. Because it's such a great experience to hear about, the problems that you're experiencing, the things you're trying to do, the stories you're trying to tell. It's just such an awesome, motivating experience.
Yeah, totally, totally. Um, yeah, that beta period was for me really valuable to understand like where are the major issues in the flow. I think that like I'm really passionate about design and user experience. I'm technical by trade, so I love building things. But to be candid, I don't think I am the like this amazing, like super technically deep in like one specific area. I really like to think much more high level about the application layer and how users interact with the product. And building Jellypod, one of the core pillars for us is making that process as smooth as possible. So there were some things about like how you go about creating hosts, creating podcasts that flow, what you see on the screen, where the buttons are placed, how you're editing. Like we were so strongly opinionated that we don't want a timeline editor. Like there are tools out there like Premiere Pro, like video editing tools or other podcast editing tools that are timeline editor based. And for me, I've used those tools before, and they're always just not as intuitive as we would like. And all of our editing process is text based. So you have a transcript on the right, and the reality is like that's all you need. If you modify a word, you don't have to worry about changing the length of that text block or doing anything. That's like more difficult than just using a word processor. So um, the UX and the user experience, if there's something that maybe doesn't make that much sense to you and how the flow works, we're always all open ears. Message us on intercom or through our like chat in the bottom right hand corner, and like trust me, like that feedback goes straight to our roadmap, and hopefully we're able to fix that as soon as possible for you to make it much more easy to get to something that you love. So that
Yeah.
was really the key for us in the beta, to get to that place at least and improve from here. This is the starting line. So, you know,
Totally. Yeah, I think it all comes down coming back to the thing, which is like we're trying to help people tell stories, and right now it's starting with where we're at today. But there is so much we can do to help get information, and then present it in ways that people want, right? The way people want to tell a story. So there's just there's so much we can do, and thank you so much to everyone who is actively posting in our Discord, posting in the intercom, sending us emails. Like every single thing gets added. We have like a repository of issues, or we're constantly triaging them. Um, Oftentimes I hear people on intercom, they'll say, like, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, or, whatever. It's never a bother. It's never a bother. It goes to my computer, it goes to my phone. Every time someone reaches out, it's like, it's a spark. It's like a friend reaching out to you, trying to help us be better. So don't hold back. Anything that you want, even if it feels like, oh, wow, like, is this really, should Jellypod be doing this? If you are doing this in service of telling a story, we are here to make it easy.
absolutely. Totally. Yeah. I want to emphasize that as well. Like that's our job. That's our goal is to make it easy for you to tell your story and get whatever vision of whatever piece of media that's in your head out to the world as easy as possible. Um, and I think talking about that is a great segue into like this future of creation. Um, it it's pretty interesting for me. I'm a musician. I played piano since I was a little kid. My family's really into music. Um, and creativity is this question that I think a lot of people are thinking about today. And what does it mean to be creative? And what does it mean for you to have created something? And Steve Jobs had this amazing quote years ago about the computer being a bicycle for the mind, and it helped people, do things that they wanted to do much more easily and leverage technology to be creative, to build things. And I think that the future of creation, whether that's in art or music, in podcasting and movie editing, in anything where it takes some level of artistic talent um, and taste, it's going to. I think we're entering an era where the barriers of entry are just busted open. I no longer have to figure out all this complicated software to be able to create something. And so if it's for me when I'm writing a song on the piano, like I'm able to iterate and just dream up something much more quickly and refine that and get to something where I'm creating, but I don't have to go and figure out the most complicated software to be able to take what I'm thinking about and what I'm envisioning in my head, um, and share that with the world. So lowering those barriers of entry, I think, is like that core uh, is core to us and core to me and Jason as well. I don't know if you had anything about creation here, but like podcasting is really similar. I mean, making a video or a podcast or any audio content takes a lot of work to do, and you don't know if it's going to be great. And making it easier to just to be creative is, I think, is super important.
Totally. I mean, I think so much about the analogy I think about all the time is the progression of like the orchestra to the conductor of the orchestra to a band to like a EDM DJ to like an electronic music producer that now has an orchestra, many orchestras, symphonies, all at their fingertips, and the explosion of music that that's caused, right? The explosion of fans and quality content, and um, I just it's incredible to see how that's progressed, and I think that same
Right.
effect is happening to this type of storytelling.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, like if you were a musical genius back in the 1700s, like you had to have access to a symphony. But now, if you're a musical genius, you have your keyboard, your guitar, your laptop. Barriers to entry are way lower. You don't need to be this prodigy one, the Mozart or the Beethoven of your generation. Many people can actually express that musical talent without the need for a symphony.
Yeah,
Um,
and there's one thing I also wanted to add to that is speed of iteration. So
mm,
only a handful of us are born Mozart, Beethoven. As founders, like this is like mantras that we live by. It's about getting things
totally.
out quickly. It's about iterating. It's about experimenting. You're never good the first time, unless you're Mozart or Beethoven. But I don't know what their first time was like. But um, you need to be able to iterate, and through those iterations, you learn. But that is so challenging in today's world, pre Jellypod, specifically in this world of storytelling. So now people can iterate on their stories, on the way that they want to tell them, on everything in between. Um, that I think we'll
Right.
see just like the bar raise for so many people, and you'll have people that never thought
Totally.
of themselves as storytellers becoming these amazing storytellers.
Totally. Totally. I know. And I think this is like a great segue into like the last thing about, like the future of Jellypod and, our near and long-term roadmap and where we want to see ourselves and what we want to build. So obviously this is super flexible. I mean, like, this, we're getting messages every day in our chat, in our Discord, like everywhere. And people are using the platform in ways that we didn't really even think was possible. And it's pretty cool. Um, and taking all that feedback really allows us to shift our priorities all the time. And so like right now, I think the biggest priorities for us in this near term are making it much more easy for people to stitch in audio that they may already have into those podcasts. That's something that a lot of people have been asking. So having intro music, outro music, music that overlays the entire podcast, um, like of some background, is something that we're building actively right now. Um, I don't know if there's other things that you wanted to share, Jason.
I mean, I guess the other thing is multi-language support. So right now we have 30 plus languages in beta. So people are like hacking together really cool stuff. It was awesome to seeing the first person. I think the first person to make a non-English speaking one was like an Italian podcast. Didn't ask any questions, just did it, and that was awesome. But making sure that that is at the same quality bar as English, but also, I mean, we're bullish on this idea of helping people tell stories through across multiple languages. So just because you're born in the Czech Republic and the way you tell stories is in Czech, does not mean that you shouldn't be able to tell that same human story to someone in Chinese, or to someone in Hindi, or Spanish. So we think that and what specifically, not just converting it. Anybody out there who's bilingual or trilingual, you realize that um, it's not just about taking the word and swapping in the new word in that new language. That doesn't sound right. That's not the way people talk, and in that way, the story doesn't get absorbed the same way. It's about saying it in the way that it's meant to be said in that language, right? Those idiomatic expressions, that kind of like a sentence structure, things like that. So it's not about like a one-to-one translation in our world. It's about telling that root story, but telling it in the way that it's going to be most impactful in all those different languages that somebody wants to tell the story in. That's something that I think just doesn't exist, and that we're so close to doing, that I'm really excited
Oh,
about.
yeah, it's super exciting. There's a lot of stuff to build, and I mean, um, if you want to be more involved in what we're building, let us know. Like, message us. Hey, I'm struggling on this, or I would love if you guys were able to do this. Message us in the app. Join our Discord. There's a lot of people talking in there about like, hey, how do I do this, or could you add this feature? And we see all these instantly, and we stay really up to date to prioritize things that people are asking for. So yeah, I mean, join our journey with us. I think that's a cool thing. Like, I love just hearing from everybody, and so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, please, and just a thank you to everybody who has been in it. All the people posting in the Discord, sharing their stories, the people on the email list, the people who are commenting on our YouTube videos. We read every single one. We respond to every single one. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of sums up the launch week. And basically, I just want to say how awesome this has been, and let's see where Jellypod goes next. So.
Thank you so much.